Shalom. I'm here with my brother, Evyatar Shulman, Professor Evyatar Shulman from the Hebrew University, for a Thursday evening in Tel Aviv, or rather Thursday afternoon, discussion on mindfulness, which is one of the things that Tari thinks about. Since our year, this year, we've defined as the year of mindful return. And so I thought we might look a little bit at what that, especially the first part of that phrase, mindful, means. So, Paul, what exactly is mindfulness? What do we mean when we say mindfulness, or what did the Buddhists mean?
Well, people can mean many different things with the term mindfulness, and it has quite popular meanings in today, like in our like Western cultures. Mindfulness then will mean some kind of pre-reflective awareness, or kind of a connection to sensory awareness that is non-judgmental. That would be a very important idea. That's what people like a guy like John Kabat-Zinn, who's like one of the founders of the kind of booming mindfulness industry today. So that's what it will mean for many people.
Like you were talking about washing the dishes before.
That's what people. That's like the classic example is that you wash the dishes and you notice the water on your hands and moving on the plate and the dirt, and it's not like we're just doing some kind of chore, but we're mindful, we're present. So that sense of presence, and also we need it because we're thinking all day and we live intense lives. So then for us, we need a kind of mindfulness that helps us kind of calm down, relax, and then when we're like connected to the body, anxiety calms down. So it's just a really pretty great thing generally, but I don't think what you mean with mindful return, and it's not really what Buddhists meant with mindfulness. So
let's pause on that for a second. Washing the dishes and noticing the water and all that is not what we're talking about when we're talking about mindful return. We're trying to say the Buddhist. Yeah, Tari is a professor of Buddhism and other religions.
It's not just being attentive in the present moment. That's what I'm saying, is that mindfulness can mean to be very present in the present moment and connected to bodily experience, and that's a nice practice, but it's not what Buddhists normally or traditionally meant with mindfulness, which is a much more, you could say, cognitive quality. It's or a mode of attention.
A mode of attention.
A mode of attention. So say, for example, we're sitting here and talking, right? And both of us are aware of this recording machine, which is your phone, and of the people who we're talking to.
Right.
So this is the context of our mindfulness. At this moment, we're aware of. We may be doing a better job if we practiced more mindfulness of this form of communication.
Right. It's interesting. It makes me think of acting, because in acting, in the Stanislavski kind of definition of what it means to be an actor, you have to have a third eye. Mm-hmm. What's the third eye? It's not it's the awareness of the audience. Mm-hmm. And so an actor is mindful of the audience. In other words, the actor puts him or herself into this thing for the audience, from the perspective almost of the audience.
Mm-hmm. So we could actually design an infinite number of mindfulnesses, which would all be mindfulness of something. It's a way of being in the world, a way of knowing, actually, a way of knowing, of experiencing. So let's say I'm a Buddhist, okay? And let's say I'm a hardcore Buddhist meditator, okay, like ancient India 2,000 years ago. And I've got all these ideas which wouldn't necessarily be popular in Tel Aviv or New York of 2021, right? So I would go to the what they call the charnel ground, say the cemetery, And start looking at the corpses that people didn't have enough money to even burn them or bury them or do any like the right rituals with them. And the corpses are falling apart. And this is the practice of mindfulness, would be to go to the cemetery, look at the corpse and say, God damn, that's disgusting. Bones, flesh. Sorry, guys, Buddhists, we're extreme.
No, but
right?
we're
and then the idea, and you develop the mindfulness that our body is ultimately gonna go through the same processes, and this is done in order to create a sort of, call it non-attachment, a kind of detachment from the body, a quality of selflessness.
So that's very much like in Pirkei Avot, it says, "Da ma'ayin bata ule'an ata olech."
Da ma'ayin bata ule'an ata olech. Know where you're coming from.
Know where you came from and where you are going.
That is wonderful mindfulness. Rich mindfulness. No tradition. In a sense, that is what mindfulness is about for the Buddhists, because it's a mindfulness is applying the traditional way of knowing.
Mindfulness is applying the traditional way of knowing. Mindfulness is applying the traditional way.
So you could be mindful as a Christian when you're eating Jesus as a cracker. That's a form of mindfulness.
Right.
You're knowing the cracker as Jesus. You're mindful, and it's a faculty. It's a way of knowing. Your experience will not be only that mindfulness. There's much more going on. There's your body. There's lots of things connect. But the cultivation of awareness that is teaching you to regulate your heart and mind according to the way tradition sees the world. That's very much what mindfulness is about.
Right. So we're mindful as Jews in a particular way.
Obviously.
And we're mindful as Buddhists in a particular way.
Say we go to Bet Knesset every Shabbat. It becomes part of our rhythm.
Right.
Say we go to Bet Knesset 3 times a day. It becomes part of our rhythm. Say we mafridim chalav v'basar. We differentiate between milk and meat. 3 hours, 6 hours, whatever. It becomes how we think. You give me meat when it's not. I'm going to say no, just because I know and my knowing will be immediate because tradition has implemented itself in my head, in the neurons.
It's gotten in there.
Yeah, the neurons have learned to see the world that way. That's the cosmos.
So in other words, right, so there is a kind of, I'm just trying to understand the kind of the relationship between losing yourself to it, right, and being aware of it, right? Like when you're meditating, you want to kind of become part of the infinite and kind of stop thinking and be in sometimes the sensory, or at least the sensory as a way of getting into a softer space. But other times, I want to actually go into it with my mind and bring myself to a certain place. And so it becomes a question of, like you were like in your article of memory. Is mindfulness is mindfulness memory, or is mindfulness experience?
So let's just highlight that point first, because it helps make a lot of sense of the whole thing. And then there's a lot of things I could say about what you just said, but just to explain that the term sati in Pali or smriti in Sanskrit can mean it means mindfulness, but it also means awareness, and it also means memory. And actually, like, its primary meaning in Sanskrit, smriti would mean memory, and in Pali it would mean mindfulness. But basically, the whole point is that it's two sides of the same coin, mindfulness and memory, because we're knowing through the structures that we've memorized and internalized. Right. We're aware. Our awareness is not pure tabula rasa, just given. We can just know objectively, freely. We're anyhow knowing through structures that we've practiced and cultivated. If we live in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or New York, we practice different types of awareness.
Right.
And that's how we, but then, your question about meditation. So maybe you meditate on the infinite. I don't really do that. And people do different things in their meditation. But for example, every tradition has every religious tradition, Christian mystics, Sufi mystics, Buddhists, Hindus, Jews apparently too, they all speak of a sense of like this infinity or selflessness or union with something.
Right.
They're experiencing similar things, but they're talking about it in a different language.
And that's the mindfulness, is the way you talk about it almost.
Yeah.
It's the lens. I'm gonna concentrate with these tools rather than with these tools.
Right. And then there's a question, if there really is anything beyond the tools. So that's something that we can, debate. Okay?
Okay, well, we're going to continue this debate. Toda rabba, Tari.
Thanks. Nice to see you all.
And yes, and we will look at mindfulness and Nehemiah's mindfulness together in a few weeks at the high holidays. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.